Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 1148. Not late. There were very few chances to use charms in high-level battles. No one would take the initiative to leave an opening for their opponent while they chanted the incantation. The reason Trissy was able to complete the corresponding action was because she had ignited wicked black flames from the inside out. As for the black flames, they seemed to absorb all the heat in the surrounding areas, causing thick ice crystals to form. Beyond the ice crystals, there were almost invisible spider webs that wrapped around them, forming huge cocoons. Relying on the 3 layers of defense, Trissy managed to buy almost 2 seconds, so she took out the rectangular diamond-shaped charm and chanted, "Yesterday!" The transparent flame ignited amidst the wicked black flames. The diamond-like charm silently disintegrated before merging with the void. This was something Klein had specially provided to the demoness, so as to allow the damage from the 3 prongs to become the main assault point at any time. Trissy immediately saw the grayish-white fog and realized that the scenes in the past were like stars, densely packed together. There were scenes of the young him wandering the streets, coming under the control of the mafia, swindling, cheating, and stealing from others. He later joined the Theosophy Order and became an assassin. There, he enjoyed ending lives in the bloodshed, instigating others to tear off their masks and reveal their true bestial nature. Due to various reasons, he had no choice but to become a witch. She began creating catastrophes, and it was arranged by the demoness of pleasure that she would become Prince Edisac's mistress. Realizing that she was becoming less and less like herself, and that she was slowly losing herself to the pleasure, she felt extreme fear and yearned to escape. However, having fallen deeper into hell, she experienced immense pain and chose to be extreme. With a thought, the scenes magnified and occupied her entire vision. Under the light, the lawn outside the window was bright, and the horses were walking slowly. The holes of the golf course could still be vaguely seen, and inside the house, there was an antique cabinet blocking the view from the door. The past Trissy stood at the edge and looked out, wearing a sapphire ring on her left hand. At that time, she wasn't even a sequence 5, and she didn't have the strength the current her needed to borrow. However, she had a ring from the demoness sect that was closely related to the primordial demoness. This ring was the thing that Trissy wanted to borrow. All of a sudden, the intricate ring that was inlaid with a sapphire gem appeared on Trissy's pinky. And unlike in the past, the present Trissy had fused with the mark and submitted to the primordial demoness. She had been greatly enhanced as a sequence 4 demigod. In other words, even though she wasn't a robust deity's descent vessel, she already had the qualifications to be one. And that sapphire ring allowed her to temporarily grasp a certain amount of initiative. Looking at the scenes in the past, the cocoon formed by Trissy's spider silk cracked inch by inch. The thick ice crystals silently melted as the wicked black flames corroded. She raised her left hand, closed her eyes, and smiled as she placed the sapphire ring between her eyebrows. The ring melted like metal as it flowed into Trissy's head in a surreal manner. At that moment, the wicked black flames were completely deprived by Prince Grove as a burning white spear of light shot out. At the front of the spear, 2 pure white wings spread out as they embraced the tip of the spear, like an angel, sealing off the surrounding space, and preventing the target from escaping. At that moment, Trissy opened her eyes. They were a deep black color. Her hair flared up one by one, each becoming as thick as a snake. The outer layer was slippery and diabolical, with clear black and white eyes embedded at the ends, or heads that looked like venomous snakes. Their mouths were slightly open as they flicked their tongues. The spear that was condensed from pure light stopped in front of Trissy, as though it was being pressed down by an invisible hand, making it difficult for it to advance even an inch further. It quickly turned grayish-white in color, turning from incorporeal to corporeal, as if it was carved out of stone. With a whoosh, the spear rapidly plummeted to the edge of the cliff, shattering into countless tiny pieces. The grayish-white color around Trissy rapidly spread out in every direction as if it had a life of its own. Wherever it passed, the stones became hard while everything else turned to stone. The various rituals that had been set up in ruins number 1 were now tainted with grayish-white colors, preventing the angels guarding the other secret mausoleums from discovering the changes and coming over immediately. Prince Grove was instantly surrounded by a grayish-white aura that emanated out of the void. With him only being capable of using the crown of thorns to maintain a small safe zone, there was no way for him to use any prohibition powers. Trissy, whose eyes had no borders marking her whites from blacks, didn't even look at her opponent. With her snake-like hair blotting out the sky, she took a step towards the secret mausoleum at the bottom of the dark valley. Boom! The ground began to shake violently as a dull thud sounded from deep within. Red asteroids with fiery tails appeared out of nowhere as they flew past Demoness Trissy and smashed at the mausoleum. In an instant, this ruin was inundated with catastrophes. George III, who was at the critical moment of his advancement, sensed this and immediately felt a strong sense of confusion and anger. With great difficulty, he split off some of his strength, and with the help of the preparations he had put in place, he forcefully distorted the surrounding area and isolated the dark and solemn secret mausoleum from the real world, preventing earthquakes and meteors from approaching the target. Boom! Boom! Amidst all kinds of catastrophes, the cliffs crumbled one by one as the ruins began to collapse. George III's angry voice sounded from the secret mausoleum that formed a world of its own. Are you mad? For a sequence 4 to forcefully accept the power of a true deity, the only outcome was death. Trissy laughed. The skin on her face had been pushed to its limits. Inch by inch, they crumbled, revealing the blood and flesh that was squirming wildly underneath. This extremely terrifying demoness scoffed and said, "Isn't the ending of a lovely story supposed to have all the bad guys die? For example, you or me." Before Trissy could finish her sentence, she wore that tragic smile on her face as the asteroid plummeted into the twisted secret mausoleum in a bid to destroy it. In another mausoleum, Klein didn't put on a strong front. He quickly ended the connection with Sapphira Castle as though he was praying to the fool for help. The commotion from before had nearly caused all the angels present to stop. Unfortunately, the concealment angel Klein had summoned was a historical void projection. It only continued fighting based on instinct, turning the situation even more chaotic. At this moment, William Augustus I's projection pulled out a silver sword and pointed ahead before slicing downward. There was no need for him to say anything else. The chaos in the ruins came to a stop as the battlefield was divided into different sections. Hermes faced the beautiful and impassive lady. Abomination saw suppressed Rionette Tinker. The historical void projections of Emperor Roselle and the Angel of Light surrounded Klein. William I stood at an isolated spot, ensuring that none of the aftershocks attacked the mausoleum below. As expected of the Hand of Order, Klein's pupils dilated. Without thinking, he reached his right hand into the inner pocket of his clothes, and he stretched out his left hand to borrow strength from his past self. The Death Consul, the Evernight Cloister's matron, and the Concealment Angel were figures that exceeded Klein's own level. Be it summoning or maintaining them, it was a terrible burden on his spirituality. He had no choice but to borrow some power from his past self before his spirituality completely dried up. This way, he was filled with fake spirituality once more. For the next 5 minutes, it was no different from real spirituality. Then Klein saw light. The angel formed from pure light, which also had illusory wings on his back, made the layers of light surge towards him like a tidal wave, drowning him. In the bright white sea of light, something suddenly appeared. It rapidly plummeted and approached the secret mausoleum. It was a dark-colored book that consisted of goatskin. Grozel's Travels. Using his ability to split into worms of spirit, and his enhanced ability to shape-shift, he shrank into bookmarks made of flesh, embedding themselves into the book, using it to block the endless light's purification and melting effect. But even so, he was still severely injured because the light still could illuminate part of his body. This wasn't the end. Standing right beneath Grozel's Travels was Emperor Roselle, dressed in gorgeous clothes, waiting there with his hands raised. Without second thoughts, Klein could only activate the first method he knew of to protect himself: hiding in the historical void. Boom! A loud thunderclap boomed outside the ruin. It rumbled in the distance in the beginning, but by the end of it, it was ringing in one's ears. Klein, together with the projections in the historical void, and all the living beings in the ruins were awed and turned stiff. Instantly, the sea of light dimmed. But no, there was a figure that wasn't affected: the concealment angel of the Church of Evernight. The beautiful but dull-looking lady took the opportunity to phase her body, transforming into many symbols that symbolized concealment and terror. She extended the strange world, enveloping Hermes, Rionette Tinker, Sua's arm, the Angel of Light, and William Augustus I within. Although Klein had summoned a historical void projection, a watered-down version, some essential parts remained. The chaos that Klein was anticipating was finally here. As for George III's other helpers, such as that King of Angels, they were still in other mausoleums. The moment the nearly transparent world took form, the angels inside began to resist. Amidst the chaos, the strange world easily tore apart. However, with the remnants of the angels' power being directed, the lady rushed out and headed for the secret mausoleum at the bottom. Boom! An even louder clap of thunder rang out. Emperor Roselle, who had attempted to stop them, was once again awed, unable to make any further attempts. In an instant, the dark and majestic secret mausoleum was hit. The cracks on its surface sank deep, causing its dark interior to present itself. In these rifts, blood appeared out of nowhere. Some were bright red, and some were dark. Boom! 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 Having restored his human form, Klein held Grozel's travels while collectively launching air cannon with his scattered worms of spirit. The mausoleum, which was already on the verge of collapse, had finally collapsed, and even more blood gushed out. With the destruction of a mausoleum, George III's advancement ritual was no longer stable. He lacked the key pillar of support. If only one mausoleum was under attack, he might have been able to rely on his tenuous connection with them to put up a resistance to a certain degree. But now, he had suffered too intense of an attack. His already incorporeal body suddenly boiled, unable to maintain that distortion outside. The mausoleum that was isolated from reality finally appeared in front of Trissy. On Trissy's tendril squirming face, the corners of her mouth curled up. Backlund City, Memorial Square. My subjects. The stern and old-fashioned George III with his mustache was finishing his speech when there was a loud explosion. His flesh and blood transformed into a flurry of fireworks that sprayed into the air.